Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy. I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string. With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
and no Buddie is left behind.
Then on a Monday, in a fire station, we watch Bobby Begins Again. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
This week we are discussing Season 2, Episode 16, Bobby Begins Again. Written by Christopher Monfett, directed by Jennifer Lynch, and it originally aired on Monday, April 29th, 2019.
We have some calls of the week, kind of, because this is a Begins episode, so the calls are always like a little different.
Background.
So we see Beyond the Glass Doors, where picking up in the immediate aftermath of what we originally saw in 105, Point of Origin, Bobby is rescued from the apartment fire in St. Paul and learns the fate of his family. Then when we're in LA again, finally, it's all aboard the crazy LA train, which is the montage. So, welcome to LA. A tree trimmer gets stuck in a palm tree. A salon visit goes horribly wrong when a woman has an allergic reaction under the hair dryers. And the 118 are called to an illegal cockfighting ring where one rooster fought back against its handler. And the last real call that we see is business is booming, but not the way you'd expect, where a father gets trapped inside after trying to save his son inside their family-owned restaurant as it becomes engulfed by flames. So this is our Bobby Begins, but more in line with the typical Begins episodes that have been established in season 2. I mean, really, we did see Bobby Begins in 105, Point of Origin, like I said at the beginning of the calls of the week. That was more like Bobby's backstory all the way before. And this is like the true Bobby Begins, where it shows how he came to be a firefighter at the 118. And thoughts? Everybody thinks it's depressing, but I think it's kind of hopeful.
Was this your shower thought on how to transition into thoughts?
Yeah.
To go, thoughts?
No, my transition was talking about how.
Oh, okay. I got you. I
already did it.
You.
And now I'm opening the floor.
I was expecting some sort of pun or something.
No.
I'm so sorry, but this is a very depressing episode. Like, very good episode. Good television. Depressing as hell. It doesn't, I mean, like, the world right now is not helping. But the content of it is very depressing. Like, it's hopeful at the very end.
Yeah.
The very end. But that's not the feeling that I got left with. I'm not like, and like, everything is great now. I'm like, this emotionally destroyed me. So it's depressing.
Yeah. I mean, it really just like takes what we learned in Point of Origin and it does pick up immediately after, but it really shows how. I mean, I like to look at it from a hopeful lens. I know the majority of the episode is not sunshine and rainbows. It is quite heavy in content, but it's also like, look how far he's come. That's how I choose to look at it.
I'm in the middle because like I see where Han's coming from because like at the end it's kind of like no resolution really.
Well, yeah.
But then I also see where you're coming from because like, you know, he was coming from a dark place and he, you know, moved to LA and like met this new team. He's like getting his like found family, but he doesn't know it yet, you know?
He's finding it.
He's finding it.
He's finding it even though he's not looking for it.
Exactly. It finds him.
I think the reason it is depressing for me is because of where we leave off and like how I know that Bobby still is. So it's like, oh yeah, Buck is there. So like now their family is complete, but it's like, it's not because they still have several months before we even get to season 1.
I know.
And we still know that he was Schmeidel. You know?
What was that?
Schmeidel.
Yes. Yes, the Schmeidel.
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 Does it make it lighter when I say it's silly? We don't have to censor this. It's not like going up on TikTok. We know that he still was like not even suicidal ideation. Like he was planning,
actively planning.
Like he had a book with the names.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, that's why it's still depressing, because I'm like, it's not hopeful.
Yeah.
It's hopeful in the sense that if you look at it from like a big lens out, that you're like, well, Buck is there. And then Buck is that's not the correct word. I wanted to say linchpin, and I was like, that's not right. Buck is the Buck is the glue. Buck is, the like last missing puzzle piece to like, well, no, I think Eddie too, but like Buck is who really brings the rest of them together as a family. So I can see where Rachel's coming from, but for me, it's still like, I know where Bobby is, where we leave off is still not a good place. So like he's letting the people in a little bit more to see, and like, but it's, I don't know. It's just like the doing better that you're seeing is like a facade basically. And so that's depressing to me.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think it is very heavy and depressing. I'm also looking at it in, I guess, from a larger scale, like you said, looking at it from where we are in season 2, like in present day, as opposed to looking back on it from that point, as opposed to like, well, it's still going to be pretty darn awful for him for like the next year and a half until we get to point of origin and everything like that, which like is true. But I don't know. I choose to look at the silver lining. Anyways.
No, I mean, I will say, like, I was not thinking about where we were present day. I don't know why my prep for this I was not thinking, but now I'll keep that in mind as we talk
present
about
day
it.
In 8 or present day in
present day in 8.
2. Yeah.
I think it was even more depressing looking at it with what I know from season 7, to be honest, on the rewatch.
That's what I
initial watch.
From a season like 7 standpoint, then I get the depressed again. So I have to look at it from like a season 2.
I can't take the context of what I know about Bobby Nash out though. So
so much of when rewatching this episode, I was thinking about that very Bobby centric episode in season 7, and I don't think I've watched like Bobby Begins Again after that episode aired.
I haven't either, not until prepping for this.
Yeah, so that really has a lot of implications for backstory that I'm choosing not to look at this current moment, but we'll be happy to revisit
when we get to season 7
or before. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's depressing. It's a very good episode.
It's so well done.
I love Bobby. I love his gallows humor. I love how funny he is. I love how everyone's like, oh, this Jamoke showing up from the middle of nowhere, and he's like, yeah, I'm lasting longer than at least one of you. Like, he's so funny.
Do you think then he got the betting pool?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good for him. And he probably used it to buy groceries so he could cook everyone a real nice dinner. Is what I'm headcanoning.
That's a good headcanon. All right, deep dive with Rachel.
We're gonna need the jaws of life over here.
I don't have any articles to read, so...
Well, that speeds this up.
Yeah.
Love that for us.
I was looking all over. I didn't find any articles from this week or any interviews with Peter Krause, and normally when it's
That's crazy.
Like a big...
He doesn't do a lot of press.
He doesn't. So normally when it's a big character episode, they have everybody doing like the press junket of it all. And I guess because he's executive producer, he gets to decide whether or not he doesn't. I guess he decided he didn't.
Yeah,
and you know what?
He's like, I will send no one.
Yeah.
He was like, figure it out.
I don't know if it was too close to season finale, so they were lining up all of the interviews and the articles for season finale, because when I was looking, like, again, if I've missed something, please let me know or send me the article, because I'm trying to compile as many PR press stuff as possible to like backlog and archive. And I just didn't see any. So if I missed some, please send it to us. But I do wonder if they were maybe focusing on getting those interviews and getting that press out for the season finale, since it would just be like 2 weeks later. Maybe that's it. But I didn't have any articles to talk about. I'm so sorry. I know you guys are so heartbroken right now.
I like the articles, but
Oh yeah, I like listening to them.
expediency's sake,
Yeah.
you know.
Did have a couple things for our red string corner. I've connected the dots.
You didn't connect shit.
So this was another Begins episode directed by Jennifer Lynch, and we talked about her in, I think, Chimney Begins, most recently, because she actually directed, just to reiterate, she directed all of the season 2 Begins episodes. So it was Hen Begins, Chimney Begins, and Bobby Begins again. Everything has like a very kind of cohesive flow with these very backstory,
like stylistically.
Stylistically, like very backstory, one character centric episodes. And I think that was a great choice. They've done this kind of thing because it's a little different than the usual shtick for 911. And it was probably a really smart choice to use the same director. So that's kind of neat. This was also written by Christopher Monfett, and he wrote previously in season 2, episode 10, Merry Xmas. And I know we liked that one a lot. It was a good buddy episode, as well as everything else. But looking forward, because I know he writes a handful in season 3. So he also wrote season 3, episode 4, Triggers, season 3, episode 6, Monsters, and episode 15, which is Eddie Begins. I think he co-wrote on a couple of those. So just something to keep a lookout. I like to kind of check in and maybe highlight what the writers have already done, because then we can start to see what's kind of in their wheelhouse, what they tend to like to write about, what themes they kind of touch on in like their body of work. And I also thought it was funny, not to be too spoilery, but in season 3, episode 6, Monsters, that's when there's the crow. So maybe there's something with birds here. I don't know. Maybe it just has something with birds. Just funny, because we had the rooster and then we have the crow. I don't know. Just pointing it out. I'm putting the pins. You can do the string. Just kind of looking at the summaries for some of those other season 3 episodes. There's a lot of similar themes and like official firefighting business stuff, because we have, Bobby's investigative hearing. We have in season 3 stuff with Buck. I think one of those is when he's the fire marshal. And then with the Eddie Begins, there's also like the military stuff. So I thought there was something there. There's also some like flashback nightmares, things coming back from your past. A lot of Bobby and Eddie parallels about how they fight to get back to their lives in a literal and metaphorical sense. So I'll probably bring those up again in season 3, just so we get like the full picture, but like looking forward. And then I didn't really form this thought, but something about the narrative framework of the investigative hearing, because we see Bobby at the very opening of the episode where, he's sitting on the chair and like, it looks like almost windowless room. It's very like a cell almost. And then the episode is bookmarked at the end by the actual beginning of that hearing. So everything in between, it's just kind of like him remembering all of the stuff that happened.
It's like him retelling. So this is very similar in style to Chimney Begins and to what I will just call Maddie Begins, because it's the closest we have.
Yeah.
Fight or flight.
Where all of this flashback is, or all of these flashbacks are very not played in the way of like, this is for the audience's like benefit for more context. But it's actually kind of, I think I said before, like diegetic, where the character is actively remembering all that stuff within that time period of the opening shot to the closing shot of this episode. And then just another thing that I thought was so funny, the priest in this episode, before we are in our hot priest era, unfortunately, because, it was his first day in the pilot. So obviously he's not there yet, right? Because this is years before. I I didn't see it anywhere in the episode. It was only afterwards, and I was looking at like the credits and the 911 wiki. Do you know what the father's name is? The priest's name?
God.
No.
You're going to tell me?
I sure am. He is credited as Father Jameson.
Oh, no.
They had the recovering alcoholic character confess to a priest whose name is Jameson.
I mean, like,
That's evil.
Irish.
It's very
priest,
Irish Catholic,
fork found
yes.
in kitchen, but
I know, but it's just like there are so many other Irish leaning names, and you went with Jameson for the recovering alcoholic.
Like that.
Damn.
That's hilarious, actually.
I thought that was so funny. It took me out, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" Because I don't think they said it in the episode, and I only saw it after.
Did you see the name of the bar that he goes into?
Was it Dirty Harry's or Dirty Jim?
It's Dirty Tim's.
That
No
damn dirty
way.
Tim.
Well, I think, you know what? I think I would love to look at that kind of stuff more and see if they do the thing that Supernatural did where they used all of these little like
Singers.
cruise names as little Easter eggs for everything. I bet you anything. Dirty Tim's bar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Dirty Tim. Anyways, so they're wild for that. Both of those things, actually. And then the only other thing I have is pay close attention to, like, if you're rewatching this episode, kind of pay close attention to the put me in coach conversation with Bobby and the chief in St. Paul.
I got so fucking mad rewatching that.
Yeah. Yeah. It really clicked for me. I was like, okay, then, because that will come up in season 3. And you kind of,
I was just like, Bobby, how is this even remotely similar to what Buck was going through?
Yeah,
What?
I mean, this is so in season 3 when we deal with Buck stuff, I wouldn't say it's exact, but it's kind of a similar. It's a similar vein.
It's not.
Well, no, like the actual incident that takes place is not similar, but I think this conversation is kind of where Bobby's coming from with like shoes on the other foot. Like he ends up taking the stance of the chief, which you would think that he would know better. That's all I'll say about that. We'll get to that later in season 3.
Yeah. Because there's only 5 more episodes until we get there, right? No, less than that. No.
Less.
5? 6? No.
Not that long until we get to what we're talking about, to be honest. We only have 2 more episodes of season
17, 18 season wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, but we have some of the season 8 stuff in between.
We just have a quick little needle drop. I mean, there's Crazy Train, which was just
So
funny.
fun. Yeah.
And I don't know. I need a version of Crazy Train with the sirens over top of it because it sounded so good.
It was really good.
I had to sit for a second and be like, are there sirens in the song? Because it just sounded like so natural, like it belonged there.
Mm-hmm. It really did.
Like it just fits in with the theme.
Yeah, that was like that whole montage with the Crazy Train reminded me a lot of the season 2 opener with Pressure by Billy Joel, where it was that montage of like all of those different calls. That's kind of what it gave. And I was like, it was a nice like bookend to that.
So the one that I want to talk about is from the end of the episode, right after he has his talk with Father Jameson.
I'm never getting over that. I think they're so funny.
Yeah, after he has his talk with Father Jameson, and he like starts all over again with like leading his squad and being
it's another
not
montage.
Punishing himself for like enjoying and being present in what he's doing. So the song is another Talking Heads song called "This Must Be the Place," parentheses, naive melody. And I'm just going to pick out a couple lyrics. Home is where I want to be. Pick me up and turn me around. I feel numb, born with a weak heart. I guess I must be having fun. The less we say about it, the better. Make it up as we go along. feet on the ground, head in the sky. It's okay. I know nothing's wrong. Nothing. So it's, you know what I mean? It's like things are wrong, but we're just going to ignore that.
Yeah.
Don't have time to unpack all of that.
I love that quote so much.
Home is where I want to be, but I guess I'm already there. I can't tell one from another. Did I find you or you find me?
So it's really about like, it has this kind of like fun, happy melody. Like it sounds like a much happier song than it kind of actually is. And I think
Talking Head songs are never actually that funny happy. They all sound silly, goofy.
Yeah, but it's when you get under the surface and the whole like subtitle where it's naive melody that I think really drives that home, where feeling like you found the place that you belong is, but still kind of having something in the back of your head saying like, but you know, that's naive of you to think that. And I feel like that is exactly where Bobby is at that point. And still so far, like, even up through, you know, season 1 with Point of Origin, but also going back into the now where he's like, well, you know, in getting ready for that hearing, it's like, well, I thought I found where I was supposed to be, but the other shoe dropped. So that was silly of me to think that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when it gets really depressing. But it's such a perfect song for that.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's such a Bobby song. We saw the other we heard the other Talking Heads song. Was that during Chimney Begins? That's interesting too. So.
That's Burning Down the House, which you're like, oh, that's just a funny haha. But like, if you look at the lyrics, it's, you know, there's more to it there.
Yeah. Again, that's probably helped by having the same director do all of these episodes. So there's a through thread here.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a good song. Flashover. So, I was trying to come up with we actually saw Flashover in this episode.
The episode where the name of this segment will finally make sense. If you didn't listen to us define what this was, the one time we did it
last week
in our trailer.
Oh, did we do that in the trailer? I forgot.
We did. I think we did.
It's been so long.
It's been so long, Steve.
Oh, so you guys can do that and you don't. And
yes.
Fine.
Rachel, you're on timeout in every single episode.
We're doing it for fun and you're doing it out of love. So there's a difference.
And if I told you I was doing it for the gigs, the kicks and giggles,
the love and gigs. Continue.
So, Flashover, just like in the show. Anyway.
Flashover conditions.
And we know to combat that, you need to vent the roof, which we also learned in Chimney Begins.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, that's why they had Bobby throw the axe up to the skylight and it was which was really cool.
Yeah.
Was that CGI or was that real, do you think?
It has to be CGI.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it was
anyway. You'd have to control the fire to make it do what that was CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been good CGI. Anyways.
She really said, oh, fuck you, Fox CGI. You've never been good. I don't believe that.
Does someone else want to talk about the themes?
No, because you wrote these.
Well, because nobody else wrote any. So,
my theme, depression and grief. Bobby.
Depression, grief, Bobby.
That's it. Great. Who's cooking?
Oh my God. Okay. We see efforts to make amends because Bobby is, as we see after his 6 months of sobriety, he is on step 8. And I think he kind of ends up staying in that step for a long, long time, which is making amends. And making amends not just to others, but to yourself. You have to forgive yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. I thought responsibility was one of the biggest themes in this episode. And kind of what's your cross to bear, right? To bring it back into the religious theme a bit. So responsibility as in taking on more burden than is necessary. Like Bobby takes on the burden and the responsibility of the entire apartment fire, even though he was cleared. But he's just like, I'm Atlas. This is my cross. I can't let myself not feel responsible for that. But also kind of like making wrong decisions because of the weight of responsibility. Like we'll see with the father who committed arson and in order to do insurance fraud with burning his restaurant down, because even though he was doing it for his family because he felt responsible for their business going south, he didn't take care of that responsibly as well. So kind of two sides to the coin there. Then another one is, it's Bobby. So another theme is going to be confessing one's sins, or alternatively telling the truth. There's a lot of emphasis on being forthwith, coming forward, or confessing about something that you feel responsible for. So we saw that Bobby did confess in Minnesota about, it was me, even though they cleared him. And we see him 3 different times at confession with Father Jameson. And the dad again, I think the dad's name is Victor, the restaurant owner, confessing that he set his restaurant on fire as well. And on the other side of that, the other hand of telling the truth and confessing one's sins and responsibility is also forgiveness. So that is literally kind of why you tell the truth and why you confess stuff, because you want to be forgiven, right? And whether or not you are able to forgive yourself, which I know Bobby still doesn't completely forgive himself, even way, way down the line here. But you can also ask forgiveness from others, or God, because this is Bobby. So, and then something I think that we can tie into season 2 as a wider whole. Okay, so talking about season 2 as kind of like a wider theme is that feeling of belonging that we see all of the characters kind of striving for throughout this season, and kind of a little bit how things are transitory. So things are bound to change, pass, or come to an end. So whether that's, Bobby's time as captaincy or not, only time will tell. And by time, I mean the next 2 episodes. So something about things that seem permanent can come to an end, but also they don't necessarily have to. But that feeling of things not lasting, even when you feel like you finally found the place where you belong. Just basically This Must Be the Place naive melody by Talking Heads. That's the theme. Done.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Nailed on the craw. So we've got...
It's trying not to react.
All right.
Bobby, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Picture it. St. Paul, Minnesota.
Apartment fire.
Set the scene for us, Sil.
I already did. I'm done.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Rooftop. Night.
Take it to the rooftop. I'm trying to keep the energy up for you guys.
I forgot to talk about this when I talked about my overall thoughts, so I'll talk about it here because it is about, it's the whole episode, but this scene in particular, we all know that Peter Krause is a phenomenal actor.
Oh, yeah.
The man. Anyway.
He is the man. But if you haven't seen him in other roles or many other roles, I know I bring it up all the time, but there are just some moments where I'm like, I'm seeing 6 Feet Under, this gut wrenching grief really threw me back to some moments in 6 Feet. The whole show's about grief.
Yeah.
So it really threw me back into some huge moments in that show for his character, who is completely different from Bobby, but it's similar, but still so very Bobby. I don't know. He's just so good, you guys. And I think that's what makes this episode so depressing. He just delivers that grief so
well.
Yeah.
viscerally.
It's all in the
visceral.
eyes. It's in the voice. It's everywhere.
Whole fucking face.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The devastation.
It's interesting because he doesn't have to do a lot.
No.
It's very subtle the way he acts, so completely destroyed, but you can tell. But it's just like very minimal, like almost minimal movements. It's just like
there's not minimal movements in this scene. Like when he cries, he is an ugly crier.
Mhm.
When he does his full cry.
Yeah.
So it's his whole face. His whole face is engaged. So that's when he gets me. It's when he's crying.
Yeah, when he's a little more like stoic, and it's more minimal, but you can still tell.
Yeah.
So good. I have to go back and watch 6 Feet Under. I know I've seen some episodes, but that was
It's so good. It's him and Michael C. Hall, man.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I think my parents watched that show and I was a little too young to should be watching it. So
yeah. That's not for kids in any way, shape, or form. But yeah,
then
anyway.
I watched like The Tudors and I'm like, what were you thinking? So.
So this scene is already devastating, but because of how amazing Peter Krause is, it literally just makes me sob and want to dissociate for the rest of the day anytime that I have to watch it or think about it. And I had to watch it 3 times for this recording. So I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
How are you doing, Han?
I am not doing well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the waking up on the roof and the like disorientation of like trying to get to his family and, you know, seeing his wife and like almost automatically going with her until he's like, wait, my kids. And like is it the chief or an EMT who's trying to distract him?
It's not the chief. I think it's a firefighter. I don't think it's an EMT.
Well, there's an EMT credited for that scene, so I just assumed.
It's one of the firefighters / paramedics on the scene.
But it's someone who knows him and his family, and they're trying very hard to distract him, which I don't know if it's the correct thing to do in that situation, but
yeah, I don't know if that was handled like the best. They didn't have like, interestingly, they were trying to handle him with the spouse gloves. I don't think it did the best, but also it may have been a little different because Bobby is like one of their own. So they had to kind of like, you know, shoot it to him straight a little bit. Because if they know him and know like how he is about, you know, he really takes his.
Well, I'm talking about like trying to hide his kids from him. Like I didn't think
that's not good either.
Good.
No.
But yeah, obviously they're not successful in it. And this is, you know, there's so much trauma in Bobby's life before this moment. We learned that especially in season 7. But like, this has to be like, no wonder he is where he is when we meet him in season 1. And no wonder it takes him so long to like, he has to keep prying himself out of it and
out of the dark places.
And then he, you know, falls back into it because it's like, those are your children.
Yeah.
Those are your children. And it's something that you were, you know, directly part of the cause of. So I understand how he's never recovered from it.
I don't know how anyone can.
No.
You can't fully recover from something like that.
I don't think so.
No. I thought it was a really well done way that they decided to kind of drop us back into the Bobby's backstory, because it picks up immediately kind of where it leaves off at the end of the last flashback of Point of Origin, where he's trying to get to his apartment and like falls through the floor with some other person. So we see that kind of rehashed a little bit, but then it picks up again with the immediate aftermath. So this is really filling in all of the blanks that we know, having gone from season 1, episode 5 to now in season 2. And it's really fleshing out that story. And it's just like, it's one thing for him to talk about it, right? As something to have happened. it really just like
different thing to see it.
And they do not pull punches with this either.
Mm-mm.
It's so heavy, especially when, he does kind of get ushered into the ambulance, and then he's at Marcy's bedside the entire time. And gosh, at the moment where she kind of regains consciousness and asks about their kids, and that's the last thing she does is say, like, I knew you would come and save us. Like, to have that be the last words, I would imagine that's ringing in Bobby's head 25/8.
25/8
all the time.
Like, having those be his wife's last words. Yeah, he's definitely thinking about it 25/8. It's honestly traumatic. There's going to be so much like guilt and all the negative types of feelings, honestly. I mean, no wonder. I can't imagine like bearing all of that.
Does he hear the 911 call? I was just wondering, like, in the hearing process, and he did the confession, and then he like saw the ruling. Like, I assumed that like the 911 call would have been played. So I wonder if he had to hear that too.
I think that would have, like, in the hearing as it takes place in season 2, or like the investigation of the incident in
the investigation of the incident.
I think it would have been the transcript. I don't think he would have heard it unless he went to dispatch and or it was released. But that was a big binder. I think it was transcripted. So he didn't.
He had to confess. That's why I'm wondering if he had to like testify, if it was like a court thing and he had to testify if they played it. Anyway, it just fodder to say that, like, even if he didn't hear it, like us hearing that as the audience, as like the first part of the episode, like after we get thrown back into the past, and then that to be the last thing she says to him is like, sorry, Chimney, knife to the gut. Like,
it really is, though. Like, and I think that's so easy to gloss over. Like, that is the call that we hear, because then it's like, oh, they knew what was happening. And that's also terrifying to think of it from that perspective. So understandably, when the incident report comes out, Bobby, who, feels so responsible for all of this and so guilt-ridden and just in full mourning, he's going to hurt himself more by reading the entire report, because that's the healthiest thing he could do. Totally.
That is nailing himself to the cross.
Like, literally.
It really is.
That priest called him the fuck out in the episode. Like,
oh, absolutely. I can't wait to talk about
the only one who's having any success. Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about Father Jameson later.
He reminded me of Father Latham, Daredevil. Why do you never remember his name?
I was like, Whomst?
I can never remember his name. I'm just like, the priest in Daredevil. That's it. Yeah, so after we see his wife pass away, and then Bobby is just like on a complete bender, it seemed like, because we cut to him was he being shocked back? Did they use like the AEDs on him?
I don't know.
Because I feel like he was having this flashback / dream scenario. He and the family were like getting ready for dinner, and then he was getting like ripped away from them because he was being brought back in the bar after having read the incident report, and he just like throws a fit, like, I didn't want to be back, I wanted to be with them, just like
was giving reverse coma dream.
Oh God, it was.
Yeah, it's like he wanted to be there. Meanwhile, Buck was like, well, no, Buck wanted to leave. He thought it was weird.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, like, I'm assuming the fire chief of St. Paul is right there and obviously has a very good rapport relationship with Bobby, and make sure to keep Bobby's name off the radio. Don't let anybody know like who this is. We're going to keep this like as private as possible, which I think is a very generous thing to do, and speaks to their rapport. But when they're in the hospital and the fire chief is talking to Bobby while he's laid up in the hospital bed, we learned that Bobby did actually confess to causing the entire fire during that hearing, and they cleared him. So I think as much as he was in mourning by reading that incident report, he was just like painting himself, going over and over again of trying to find a way for him to be uncleared.
And I think also trying to see like if there was anything he could have done. But yeah.
Again, speaking to that relationship that Bobby and the chief have fostered, the chief understands what Bobby's going through and point to any church basement. You'll see some familiar faces. So like the fact that Bobby is a struggling alcoholic doesn't faze him. He doesn't want to even fire Bobby. Like,
no,
he really insists that it was not Bobby's fault and Bobby is taking the blame too far. I mean, like unnecessarily far. Because Bobby's always going to feel some sort of fault for having the space heater in the first place.
Yeah.
But, it was the rest of the building that was so
not up to code.
Yeah.
So
had a lot of issues.
A literal death trap.
Yeah, it was illegal.
Because that could have been anyone.
Exactly. It just so happened to be Bobby.
Yeah.
Anything, like someone could have lit a candle in another apartment and it could have gone whoosh. Like it just so happened to be.
Someone could have been cooking because like one of the things was that the building alarms had dead batteries.
Yep.
No electrical
alarms, no sprinkles,
backup.
sprinklers, nothing.
But then in true Bobby
worked.
fashion, he takes that to be
He's
his
like,
responsibility
but I didn't
too.
notice it either. And I'm like,
yeah.
Are you the landlord? Do you own this building?
Are you the fire marshal that was supposed to check out that building? No,
yeah, but he can't think like that with the situation.
Let that go.
He'd be having a hard time with it, even if his family had survived.
Of course,
like a very hard time with it. But like with his
I should
family,
have been better.
Yeah, with his family gone. No.
Yeah.
There's just no way that he was gonna.
The chief kind of levels with Bobby, and he's like, "If you think you deserve to be punished, well, I guess your punishment is that you live. Now make it worth a damn." And I think that is kind of what keeps Bobby going, because he has to make amends. He has to make things right. He has to balance the scales. And that's kind of that. I mean, we know that is his driving force and driving motivation all the way up through like the end of season 1, basically, until he throws the book away. Right. But he doesn't do that yet.
Yeah. So it's really quick. Did find such an issue with, and like, don't get me like, I'm not trying to bash AA. I mean, I guess I will bash a little bit the way that AA is completely based around faith, which I don't think is like a sustainable or right thing to do, like as a blanket recovery program.
It can work for some people, but it's not a it's not a one size fits all.
But the fact that like his sponsor was like, this next part's gonna suck. You have to make amends to every single person you've ever wronged, and gave him a notebook. I'm like, I'm sure that Bobby would have had some version of where we see him in season 1, where he's like, yes, I am, getting the ledger even before I can leave. But like, I feel like that was pushing him off the cliff to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that his sponsor didn't know.
I would think that they would have.
I think that he would have to know.
I don't know, because Bobby is so keep things really tight to the chest. I don't know how much his sponsor.
I don't know how he gets
would have
to
been able.
Was it 90 days?
Well, he was coming up on six months of sobriety, but it's 90 meetings in 90 days, I think.
Okay. Anyway, you don't get to that many meetings in that many months and working through successfully without talking about it at all. I don't think. Like, this is just conjecture, but
generally no. I think Bobby is a
I just feel
case.
like maybe we shouldn't blanket apply, but like make amends to anyone who you've wronged. I just don't feel like it's a safe thing to maybe tell everyone to do.
Yeah, especially someone with as glaring a guilt complex as Bobby Nash. Like, yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, because I did kind of feel weird about I'm sure this is like an actual AA thing, but the note that was in the book that Oscar, his sponsor, gave him, and it was like, step 8, make amends. And it says, we made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And I just feel like that was maybe not the right thing to help Bobby with his recovery.
That's another thing that I'm like, line might be like actually just what it is in AA. I don't know.
And I don't want to like
why
knock
did you
that,
give him
but
a whole book if you didn't know is my thing. Like, why would he need a whole book?
I guess to write the letters to anyone that he wanted. But the thing is, Bobby takes that book and takes making a list of all the people he's harmed so far.
Like suicidal Santa Claus.
Oh my God. Checking it twice a day. Yeah. Again, because one size does not fit all, I do not think that was the right way to go about it. And I think like from a more wide angle look at the series with Bobby specifically, and especially in season 7, because there was an episode titled Step, I think.
Yeah.
Or did they change that?
Yeah, but I think they changed it, right?
They did change it, but I think that's what it originally was going to be called.
So I think Bobby has really been stuck in this step 8 of making amends until like he gets to step 9 in season 7. Like, so he's kind of in this, like he's making headway from season to season, but it's still just like as a general, he's still trying to do good by the bad that he feels that he has caused. For so much of his character arc.
Yeah.
From like season to season.
I don't know. I just wish he would have. This is good. You're going to hear me say this a lot over this show. I just wish he would have seen a therapist instead of.
Yeah, he's out here recommending therapists to his crew, but he's not.
Because I feel like a therapist would have been like
actually
recommending
helpful for him
a way to kind of do something like that, but in a productive, not harmful way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because like I don't think that AA like as a whole is bad. I just don't think that like it's a one size fit all.
Yeah.
And even though that Bobby is religious, I just feel like when he is going through it with that much trauma, and especially such a like fresh recent one, that like maybe therapy would have been a better option. Also, how were they not? I mean, I guess he was not on duty.
No, he wasn't.
Because I'm like, I feel like they would have made him go to therapy before coming back, you would think. Well, no, wait. What year was it? Never mind.
It was like 2014. It was 2014. It should have been fairly mandatory, but I'm wondering then also if because of the chief kind of pulling strings for Bobby, if they didn't necessarily that like
possible.
Like he's in mourning, he doesn't have to deal with this stuff. So I wonder if they kind of like pulled more strings than maybe Bobby is even aware of.
Like to his detriment.
Yeah, by like not necessarily having him go through
grief counseling,
department mandated therapy, even though he was like riding the desk for like 6 months. So I don't know. I kind of figured that maybe they didn't make him do that, or that it wasn't as mandated, but that's 2014. That's not that long ago.
Before we started recording, I asked if this chief was the same person or a person who's also in the flashback we get in season 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like by name, but I'm wondering like if it is someone who knew him and knew his dad.
Yeah.
And that's why he has a soft spot for him.
I would not be surprised. Maybe if he wasn't the chief back then, he was probably in the department. If he didn't know Bobby's dad directly, he probably knew of him long before Bobby came into firefighting, right? So I really do wonder. Yeah,
because he's a legacy firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really do wonder if that plays a part in his like softer treatment of him, which is lovely, but also like, was that really to Bobby's benefit? And I'm not sure that it was. There's a couple things in here also when we get further down. So like Oscar, the sponsor, maybe doesn't give him the best kind of advice. The chief maybe doesn't push him in the best direction with whitewashing everything. And then there's something that Father Jameson says later on that I'm like, I don't know, but we'll get there. So, and this is probably why Bobby's advice is kind of a little left of how helpful. Because he doesn't get good advice.
No.
So he can only do...
We know he didn't have a good father figure either, so...
No. So, I mean, he can only do so much with the tools that he has at his disposal.
Poor Bobby.
Poor Bobby. He's 6 months sober. He's been riding the desk and climbing the walls and needs to get back out on the job. Who does that sound like?
That's where the similarities end, just by the way.
Oh, I know. It's the drive and the want to get back to into the field, into firefighting, and like that.
It's Buck, in case you didn't.
Surprise! You're listening to the Buddy System, where we talk about Buck even when Buck's not there, and we talk about Eddie even when Eddie's not there, like from season 1. But yes, it's the drive to get back out there. It's the firefighting is my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am nothing if not a firefighter. That is where that similarity is. So like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there. He's meeting with the chief. I think it was Chief Evans, the St. Paul chief. And Bobby's like, I want to get back out on the field. Put me in, coach. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I just want to not be on the desk anymore. I'm ready. And the chief says, you're ready. And that's fine. That's great. But I don't know if the other guys out there are going to be ready for that. Which also sounds something like season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby's like, okay, then put me in, coach, anywhere. I don't care, because he has no tethers anymore to St. Paul. He's just kind of like drifting in the wind. He's
he has this
existing
plan now that he wants to put in action.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and he is kind of very forthcoming about, I owe 148 lives. I need to balance the books. I'm ready. Like, transfer me if you must. I don't care. I need to atone. He says I need to atone for what I've done in my own way. And he can't do that in Minnesota. Then if he can't do that there, then he'll do it somewhere that will take him. And that's also kind of a problem too, where he's saying this to the chief. And I think that, again, speaks to their kind of relationship of peers and equals, because he's being so candid with Chief Evans as well. So we see that it goes both ways here, but just like I need to atone for this in my own way. It's like, well, maybe you're getting in your own way a little bit sometimes, but I think to speak to how much respect Chief Evans has for Bobby, he's like, okay, let's send you to sunny Los Angeles. And I don't think this is legal. They totally whitewash his record. They totally whitewash Bobby's record.
I mean, to be fair, that has nothing to do with his job.
I mean, true. But I think that he means like they whitewashed it in the way of like they maybe removed his how close he was to the incident of the apartment fires. They probably, when he came to Los Angeles, I think they knew that he lost his family in those fires. But I think by whitewash, I believe they mean that they took out any and all relating connection Bobby had to the start of the fires, as in it was the space heater in the apartment that Bobby was paying for, Bobby's confession. I think that's what they really mean, like Bobby's confession that it was me. I did it. It was my space heater, the apartment that I was paying for. I think they omitted all of that. And it was just Bobby Nash lost his family in this horrific incident. Hire him, sort of thing. So that's what I'm imagining. I'm just not sure how legal that actually is. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yes.
I mean,
I just don't know how relevant it is to his actual job, but
no. But if they omitted stuff like that, it's just not great.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which is why they're doing that investigative hearing in season 2, because it wasn't confessed. It wasn't brought forward knowingly when they probably would have liked to know. I think it doesn't necessarily have as much bearing on, who he is and his record, like they say at the end, which he has proven, because he does get reinstated. So it's just like up in the air right now. So we finally arrive to LA and we catch up with Hen and Chimney and the rest of the 118 that we kind of got to know a little bit, not really, just in name and face only.
Rocco
And
Rocco's
Rocco.
friend.
Who I wrote off immediately because he is a Yankees fan.
Correct.
Yeah. No Yankees fans here. Absolutely not.
I'm a Yankees fan.
Leave.
Okay. Thank God. Bye.
The rest of this episode will be brought to you by Ken and Rach only. Anyways, so sorry.
Rachel, I don't
I
watch
know she's
baseball.
She's
know.
not a Yankees fan. It's the bit.
It's
the bit.
It was part of the bit.
Okay.
Born and
Just
bred
to clarify, no one here actually likes the Yankees. Don't come for us.
Red Sox.
And if
all
you
the
do
way.
like the Yankees, so sorry.
Sorry.
About your taste.
But if you're a Red Sox fan, come talk to me. Ever suffering.
I'm an Orioles fan. I don't want to hear about it.
Well, yeah,
I don't watch baseball.
it's fine.
Don't watch the base with the ball. Anyway.
The base with the ball and the
It's-
stick.
No,
Stick ball?
you're there to watch them in the pants.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
what you're there for.
Okay, so we catch up with the 118 and we see kind of how things have changed a little bit because where we last left off with a Begins episode was around like 2008. So this is like 6 years later-ish, something like that. If we're thinking
Math.
2014-ish. Is that math? I don't know.
I don't
2008?
know right now.
It's fine. And we learned that with Gerard being nixed, which we saw in Hen Begins, they've been running through captains. So Hen says, like they're the island of misfit toys for retiring brass because they've gone through 6 captains in 2 years. So that's not even talking about the previous 4. That's kind of like fan fiction gap. And it seems like a lot of the captains that they have are there for a good time, definitely not a long time, and probably at the twilight days of their careers. And so they're taking bets, and this is the establishment of the betting pool in the 118, and Hen is the ringmaster of it, which I love. And I love anything in fan fiction that uses that trope because it is 100% canon.
Yep.
And then I also kind of wondered, just as a quick aside, like when did the curse of the 118 actually start? When they're all in like the thick of the biggest emergencies? Because it doesn't seem like it's in the last however many years. So not that we really see it, but
I mean, do I have to say it?
starts with B, ends with Uk.
I was going to say it's Eddie.
Oh. I mean, that's fair. He comes in and there's an earthquake.
Yeah.
Shattering their world as they know it, including Bucks. So as they're kind of taking bets on how long this one's gonna last for their new captain, Bobby pulls a fantastic move where he was just kind of like eavesdropping and hiding in the cab of the engine, overhearing all of them, just kind of like getting like the lay of the land and like kind of doing some very sneaky like recon of what they're actually saying behind his back before he even shows up, which I thought was amazing. And Bobby should do that kind of stuff more often.
I think it's stuff that you would see like when he's like hazing new people.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing where he's like pulling the wool over like their eyes just a little bit, like
he does it to Buck when he shows up.
Yeah. Like kind of pulling their chains and seeing how they're going to react, I think, is fun for him. And he needs all the fun that he can get. So
Jesus.
God, I know. So he kind of spooks them all. And some of them,
Good for him.
yeah, some of them feel a little bad about it, like Hen and Chimney, and that's kind of it. And like he just fully reprimands them on the state of their engine and the lack of stocked supplies that they have, and it's like, whip them into shape, Bobby, because it seems like they've been become a little more lackadaisical in because they're like, they
don't have good leadership.
Yeah.
And I wonder how long they've been without a captain at this point, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, and are we implying that DeLuca's like the interim captain? Because
absolutely what I
think
thought.
so, yeah.
And it's like, no wonder they didn't appoint
passed
him.
him over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're basically all just very skeptical about Bobby, and with like understandably, like they're kind of like little orphans looking for their home, their forever home, and they don't know who's gonna keep them.
Oh my God.
Until that was really sad.
I don't think that's the case.
No.
But that's cute. Yeah, so we see this really cool like montage that simultaneously shows how competent and good at his job Bobby is, and also how he does not understand.
He's so out of his depth in LA.
LA at all. Which is crazy. They just threw him onto the job without like letting him like shadow someone
or
to like get to know the city more. You know what I mean? No, he just like got off a plane and then showed up at the 118. Honestly, is basically what you get the feeling of. But he, you know, he's Bobby, so he picks up very quickly, and then you know he finds himself in his own element eventually, pretty quickly too. So then he gets to have the last laugh back at everyone who's kind of laughing at him, being like, "Get on the freeway."
I know. I really, and this is the crazy train montage. I really love how they did it because it was such like, you know, DeLuca makes the joke before Bobby like shows himself, being like, you know, this LA will look like Mars to this podunk guy, and because like, you know, anywhere in between like New York and California is Nebraska. And it's like, to an extent, that is kind of true because like Bobby's just like, what is a palm tree? And then the falling machete and just like not what you expect. And the stuff about the salon where it's like, I have an audition and like that LA culture. So it's just kind of like, it is Bobby entering a different world from what he's so used to. He does take it in stride. Like he just has to find his bearings first. And then he's looking through the paper maps like a newbie, and he says like, I need a decoder ring. Who lays out a city this way? And it's just like, oh boy.
To be fair, it's
terrible.
It's so bad.
The grid system is awful.
The only thing worse is DC. Well, and Boston, but Boston kind of has a grid system. It's just the getting.
DC tried to have. No, DC is like Freemasonry.
DC's a grid and a grid
stuff.
with like an absurd amount of traffic circles, but
yeah, it really is. But like even with, you know, feeling like a fish out of water, Bobby still tries to bring like his classic. You know, he tries to take on the captain role and the leadership role, and at that first scene with the palm tree, he's just kind of like, what do I do here? Like, what's the order of operations? And DeLuca is the one to like start, you know, making the orders, and Bobby's like, okay, well, we'll go with that because I've never dealt with that before, so we're going to, you know, look to someone who has more experience with that. And then at the salon, it's like the classic Bobby humor where he's like, don't decapitate her. It's my first day.
My first day.
Which
like,
is
it's okay on your second.
And also not something that you want to be hearing from the person who's stuck in that hairdryer. Like,
his bedside manner is questionable.
It is classic Bobby Gallows humor. It's so funny because he has to make a joke of things in order to like live a little bit, you know? A little bit of levity here and there in the darkest way possible.
Someone needed it in the episode too, because dear God.
Yeah, which is what we got with the cockfighting ring, which was quite something.
So chickens.
Bawk, bawk.
Look at all these chickens.
Bawk, bawk.
Wait, that is absolutely how we need to transition that.
Oh my God.
So Bobby sings his best Nessa Rose. Me and Bawk.
Me and Bawk.
Me and
He's so
Bawk.
excited about this call.
Oh my
It's
God.
so funny.
No, it's so great because this is like his wheelhouse, right?
Mhm.
This is exactly what DeLuca said. This podunk guy is going to be great in a barn burning and whatever. And it's like, well, yes.
Why, yes, he is.
Why, yes, he is actually. So we go. It's this great like flip from the Crazy Train montage of like all of that culture shock that Bobby's experiencing to like, oh, he knows exactly what to do now, and he's just kind of like sitting back and letting the other LA firefighters do their thing, which is absolutely like not helpful and not productive. As they're trying to like corner this rooster. And Bobby's just like enjoying the moment, and he lets himself like smile,
Have fun,
and laugh. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
have a good time because he's like kind of making fun of everyone around him because they don't know what the fuck to do with this. And, it's just
even despite himself, he's like, he's kind of in the moment, like for once in probably 6 months at least, like better part of a year.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that we meet Athena, or Bobby meets Athena also, which is like, I love that they included her in this scene specifically. And it's just like, so what a meet cute, right?
I'm trying really hard not to make the joke.
You should just make the joke because I was just thinking about it.
Because I think I have it written down.
A romance is not dead, he handed her a cock. That's how you know.
Yeah. He said, I am yours.
This is only for you.
Oh my God.
I mean,
it's very cute because like, again, he's just having a great time, but he's like, oh, now I get to rope in this stranger.
Yeah, absolutely. Does he even
take care of him?
Really
he's had a hard day. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he even like really introduce himself? He's just like,
no.
Okay, the
take care of this cock for me. Bye.
The sergeant's on the scene. I don't have to deal with it anymore. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like he's been unarmed. And like, what a lasting impression, because he's just like, bye, and pieces out. Like, and then Athena's just left here like, absolutely not. Like, what am I supposed to do?
She's not happy.
So it's kind of funny because it puts her at like off her footing, off her game, which is just like a really cute way to have them have their first interaction. Because then you get Bobby feeling like kind of like comfortable and a little like silly, goofy, happy. And Athena's just kind of like, huh, what's going on? Which is how Bobby's felt all day.
Like she was like, the audacity to hand me this. Zero respect.
like what am I supposed to do with this now? And he's just like, gotta go to the next one. Bye.
I also really like that we get another lore drop of Hen being like a low-key animal rights activist.
Oh.
And Chimney being like, her name is Hen.
Like, what a fantastic moment, like opportunity to put like 2 and 2 together. So it's like, of course, it's her feathered brethren. And then so we see this like really lovely moment of kind of feeling at home, feeling in the present moment, a little bit of joy in there. And then it cuts to, Bobby on the phone with his sponsor back in Minnesota. And they're like talking about, Bobby's doing great. He's going to the meetings. He's doing what he needs to do. And it kind of gives you a red herring with the way the shots are set up, because he's in the car and it pans to, people outside a door.
It makes it look like he might be going in or out of a meeting.
Yeah.
Like an AA meeting.
Like at a church.
Yeah.
And then it's not. And it's
Dirty Tim's.
Dirty Tim's.
Good old Dirty Tim's.
Gonna start calling him that from now on.
Dang Dirty Tim. that damn
Dirty
Damn
Tim
Dirty-
back
it's
at
like-
it again.
Isn't it like damn Dirty Dan? No, Dirty Dan.
and
Is it
Pinhead
just Dirty
Larry.
Dan?
No, I'm Dirty Dan.
Oh, it is Dirty Dan. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Pinhead Larry. So who's Pinhead Larry in this? Moving on.
So yeah, he then has to punish himself for having, you know,
a little bit of fun.
a moment of like not self-flagellance. Like, so he punishes himself by breaking his sobriety. And it's like, for me, it's the fact that he actively chose that.
Yes.
It wasn't like he
Fell
like
into
in
it.
like in Point of Origin, where he literally just is so triggered that he, you know, does that. It's the fact that he was just like, no, I need to punish myself, and this is the best way to do it.
Or
It's
and
just-
it's not even like stuck where it was an accidental.
Yeah.
With taking eating the brownies.
No.
And he didn't know. I think that's a great thing to point out, that it was an active decision on his part, which we have not seen up to this point.
Yeah, we had unknown to him, so against his own will, we had him like spiral
Triggered, yeah.
triggered. And then this is just like, I need to hurt myself, and I'm going to do that by breaking what I've been working so hard at doing.
Yeah. Because I
So
don't
that I
deserve this
can-
moment of happiness.
Yeah, it's just like,
Which then he brings up when he goes to confession the first time, or chronologically the first time he goes to that particular church. And I might have said this earlier, but we are in the hot priest era.
Yeah.
do
So
we ever
sad.
see him actually do confession in a confessional?
I don't think so. No.
Huh.
And it's interesting because it's the same thing. The Father Jameson, forgot that for a second, was like, sorry to keep you waiting. And Bobby invites him to be just like, hey, we can just chat out here. Just like he invited
interesting.
Father Brian
Yeah.
in the pilot episode. So it's interesting that it was like, it's also his decision to not have these kind of conversations in the confessional as well. And I kind of
Maybe
wonder,
so he can like look at them and like feel like he's being held
judged?
accountable more. Yeah.
maybe, or maybe like a feeling of like, I don't know.
Maybe it's like the moment of like seeing someone's facial expression and seeing the moment when they're passing judgment across their face.
That's
or
exactly
something.
what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
You know, like
Like he
because-
wants to see that disappointment.
because there's a lack of an oh god,
Anemone.
Anemone.
anonymity, right? Is that correct?
Mm.
I think so.
Because there's that lack of anonymity there. So then he's like, I have to, I guess another way of him feeling like he has to own up to, it's maybe a responsibility thing. Like I have to own up to the choices that I've made, sort of thing. And I have to see the judgment from others, because this is the only person that I'm going to be like, you know, fully transparent with. Right.
Mhm.
So he's doing this like whole self-flagellating thing in front of the priest to like make himself feel worse. Right.
Mhm.
And the priest is just like, nah, no, like what? You don't deserve good things. You don't deserve. And he's like, no, I don't. Like, tell me I'm bad. And Father Jameson is like, not going to do that.
Well,
I know someone else who feels like that.
yeah, sounding pretty familiar.
Someone who doesn't deserve joy,
Or
Mhm.
forgiveness.
forgiveness, or good things in life,
Oh,
Or juice.
absolutely.
or juice.
Or juice.
Or juice. Or
Juice theory is so real. And so Bobby is just like really beating himself over the head with like, you know, he let himself forget for a moment all of the bad things he's done, all of the terrible like crimes that he's committed against humanity, basically. You know, his like 1,000-pound cross to bear. But for a moment he forgot, because he was doing good work with good people and it felt familiar, like his life before. And he can't live in that before time ever again. There was a before he did what he did, and there's an after. And
Yeah.
he just and never the twain shall meet, right? Like, he said he thought if he let himself, he could go on living here. But that's not the plan. And that's why he's so upset about it, because it's like for a second, he forgot that he had a plan in place about how he was going to balance the books.
Hey, Natasha Romanoff.
Right? If he felt for a brief second that he could go on living here in LA with the people that he's working with, well, that defeats his whole purpose. And he's not allowed. He's not allowed. And Father Jameson is like, there was only one person who's good at multitasking.
From across? Yeah, I was like, I need this line to be used on all of my favorite fucking Martyr Syndrome characters.
Oh, absolutely. Matt Murdock, hello.
Yeah.
For fucking real.
Wait, can Father Jameson and Father, what's his name? Lang.
Someone wrote a fic where Matt met this priest when he was like in LA for a fitting for one of his outfits.
Oh, that's so great.
Someone else do it.
Oh, I thought you said someone has written that.
No, I'm saying someone should do it.
Please. Oh my God, that would be so good. We need more
Daredevil crossover.
911 crossover. Okay, so moving on. Are we at the restaurant?
Help.
Still at the restaurant.
Still sitting in the fire I started.
Jesus.
Am I wrong?
It's not wrong.
Yeah, so this is a really sad call, and they whenever you see like so much backstory for a call, you know it's gonna have hurt. Heavy it's gonna hurt, and it's gonna have heavy implications to either mirror something that's going on with the character that's on the call, or it's foreshadowing for something that is going to happen later. So in this case, it's both, which is fun.
Yeah. Super fun. Love that.
Super fun. But yeah, I mean, it's really sad because it's just a family that is
struggling,
trying to like get by on the income of their restaurant that's really unsuccessful, and like they're just declining. And, you know, he starts a fire for the insurance money, but his kid forgot something and like had to go back in, I think.
His laptop.
Yeah.
His laptop. Oh my God. I mean, like mood. Like if I was going to run back into my apartment for like one thing, it would probably be like my laptop or a hard drive with all my shit on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an understandable thing, but it's also like, you know, if you're planning on committing arson for insurance fraud, you want to cover all your bases.
I mean, yeah, but he didn't know his kid was going to do that. So
I don't think it was very well thought out. It was, Victor is the dad's name. It's just like feeling the pressure, feeling like he had to, you know, provide for his family, and
that he had to fix
like
it,
he was failing at it. Which is, I mean, this whole thing is, I mean, I don't even need to really point it out, but it's an obvious parallel to Bobby.
Yep. He makes a split-second decision that affects his family for the rest of their lives. It's reflecting how Bobby kind of, I mean, not really did the same thing, but it's reflecting how, like, it's triggering because, like, kid in the fire.
Dad goes back in to save them.
Dad goes back in to try and save him. And then the confessing.
Yes.
Later. Because he doesn't even try and deny it. Like, he's just like, they showed up and he was just like, yeah, I did it. Like, and that's what Bobby did. Yeah.
And Athena's like, you know, sir, are you sure you want to like,
she was about to be now. Like,
do you want a lawyer?
you should say nothing. Like, what are you
I know, she
didn't even read your Miranda rights yet. Like,
I do want to kind of point out like the difference here, because I think Bobby obviously feels a lot of kindred spirit in like a very sad way with this dad, with Victor, because they basically, if you look at it from like the main beats of it, it's basically the same thing. However, when you get into it a little more and you zoom in, for lack of a better term, I mean, I know Bobby feels like it's the apartment fire was like completely his fault, but he was cleared because of the building codes.
It wasn't directly his fault.
It wasn't directly his fault.
He didn't have an intention to do anything.
Exactly. It's the intention.
He didn't have an intention to harm anyone but himself.
Exactly. It's the intention here that I think really differentiates Victor from Bobby, even though Bobby sees himself so much in Victor.
Yeah.
But it's that even though those were both like a split second decision sort of thing, Victor did it on purpose to help his family. It was the wrong decision to make.
Well, because his kid first of all,
it's illegal. Second of all,
yeah, but his kid almost died in it.
Yeah.
And, a firefighter almost died in it too. All of them actually could have, it had gone a little differently.
If like the shoe was on the other foot and there was the investigation about that, Victor would not have been cleared because he was the actual instigator in that. And with Bobby, he had no intention to do anything like that. It was an
but he
accident.
sees it as he was trying to help his family. And like, I was, I don't think he has like accepted that because he's an addict and it's a disease that like he wasn't actively choosing to do
harm.
anything to hurt other people.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can't tell the difference there.
No.
So to him, his addictions were the same thing as
worse
than actively deciding to commit insurance fraud.
Because he hates that he's turning him in. He hates that.
He doesn't want to, but
he's like, but also arson is wrong because it's very dangerous and dangerous people.
And well, he feels so much of that guilt for, I think this comes in the second confession or something where, where Bobby is feeling so guilty about, my family got killed because of my actions in his mind. And I'm the one that gets cleared. Whereas this man, this other man was also just trying to do right by his family and like provide for them and made a bad choice, but he has to suffer the consequences of it. Him just like grappling with how the fairness of that. It's because he can't see that, see the differences there. It's not the same. It's similar, but he's just like, no, it's exact.
Well, sounds like somebody else I know.
Yeah.
Comparing himself to
I wonder who.
Someone else.
Wonder who. After they go to the restaurant, because of the actions that DeLuca made by running in to get the kid before Bobby even like gave the orders, he just kind of like ran in. It could have ended really badly, but it didn't, but it could have.
But there's strategy to these things. Exactly. And there's a reason why there is a captain specifically who takes into account everything that's happening. And then they send people in a way that is going to be the most safe.
But we see why
he
was passed over for captain, because he wants to be the hero without taking but he can't lead. Right. So even though he says like, and this is also, this is when Bobby and DeLuca come to blows afterward. And DeLuca's like, like I have the skill that it takes to lead this house. And Bobby's like, but definitely not the temperament, obviously, because you have to be you have to be able to lead. And that's what a true like captain or leader does, which is what Bobby is. Yeah. And like, so it kind of seems to me that DeLuca was maybe the main ringleader during like Gerard's old guard sort of thing, like taking kind of after Gerard, and because it seems like he was, the leader, when they didn't really have one. So, and it's interesting too because during the scene we see Chimney and Hen coming in because they were in like the locker room or something, and they see like something's happening, and they come in and they're kind of blocked. The blocking is like they're on Bobby's side, right? On the side of the room, and Tommy is kind of in the middle, but like a little more to DeLuca's side of it. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they like divvied that up to kind of like draw the line in the sand there. Because I mean, we know like Hen and Chimney are Bobby's besties. Bobby's willing to give DeLuca a second chance, but DeLuca can't see the forest for the trees and is too like, full of himself. And
he's just so full of himself.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what reason do you have?
This big cool firefighter
to be full of yourself? Because you could have saved that kid in a different way. Like you just,
he wasn't working as a team. He was, it was serving his own self-interest of being the hero guy.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I guess I'll like say this because I know that like people could draw parallels between him and Buck because Buck also just runs him, but the reasoning for why they do it in situations is completely different. Because for Buck, it would just be, it's a kid, I have to help them.
And I mean, even though they're both similar and like, I guess they know what they're capable of, Buck's is so much more selfless. And DeLuca's seems like it's more self-serving.
Yeah.
And that's the difference there. So that's why, you know, even, and that's why,
so he's
like,
saving
even
other people
when,
to stroke his own ego.
Buck and Bobby kind of have their little like tiffs or differences about some stuff like that. It's kind of blows over because it's not coming from a place of ego for Buck.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's the lack of respect that DeLuca has as opposed to Buck, who has so much respect for Bobby. So like when Buck gets his, you know, gets reprimanded by Bobby, like he takes it to, I think he does take it to heart. He can either, but I think he learns with it, you know, he learns from it. And DeLuca here is more like he just feels like, you know, his hackles are raised.
Yeah, he's in a corner.
He's ready to like fight back and just again, he's in a corner and he's just like, I don't respect you. You just came in and you know what I mean.
That's why, and I think it is from his own ego that he wasn't really understanding that Bobby was willing to give him a second chance. It was just, you know, just kind of like, hey, you know, like slap on the wrist, don't do that again because that was very dangerous. I have to like, DeLuca was seeing that as like Bobby marking his territory as like the guy in charge sort of thing, which is absolutely like categorically untrue. Bobby has never had to do that because he leads with his heart and he doesn't have to lead with like an iron fist sort of thing. He's gentle parent Bobby, right? And DeLuca just doesn't understand that that's where Bobby's coming from. So it's also a lack of willing to open up and allow Bobby into this space that he has, or that DeLuca feels that he has a right to, which he doesn't. So then DeLuca's, you know, really kind of forcing his hand. Bobby's just like, okay, bye. Don't bother coming back. Thanks so much.
Basically.
See you later. Because Bobby has to make those hard decisions. We'll probably catch up a little bit with that bar Bobby bonding time.
I know this is out of order, but for our scene dissection, we're doing the bar. So I was going to say we'll just skip the bar and like go to Bobby following his hunch.
Puts his little investigative hat on. Because, you know, a light bulb moment happened and he's like, oh, well, let me check on this because of his understanding of how sources of fires happen. It just so happens that Athena is also following her own hunch, and it's just like soulmates. It's so sweet that like you see from the very beginning how like similarly they kind of like approach their jobs, but also like just generally in the way they think. And this is one of the reasons why they mesh so well. And they make such a good team when they do their little like detective thing together. Because they always solve the case. And by putting like, so they come at it with their own expertise, and that's only half of the picture. But when you put it together, it makes the whole picture. And that's when they discover that, you know, it was a improvised incendiary device, which is important to remember for the rest of the season. The last 2 episodes. Improvised incendiary device. It runs in the family. We don't really need to get into the details of that there. It was discovered that like, yeah, the dad did it on purpose because all of the breakers were fine and the sprinkler system never, and the water valve was shut off. Yeah.
It had just gotten inspected. Yeah. All of the math was not mathing. And they both realized that because they're both very smart.
Yeah. So that's when we see that second scene in that second confession where Bobby's like, well, now I know that this guy did it on purpose, and we get all of that guilt coming back again. And there was the story of St. Paul, right? Where it was that Father Jameson gives him. Oh, the moral of the story was basically like grace is not something that you earn or deserve, but it's a divine gift.
Oh yeah.
And Bobby's
given.
Just supposed to accept that, which, so I'm not as familiar with like the story of the saints or anything like that, but
I mean, it's just kind of like an overall like what Christianity is, which is just like, you don't get to decide if what you did is too bad to ever be able to be forgiven, because that's
Don't worry about
Jesus
it.
covers all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got you covered. It's all love here. It's in the club. We all fail.
In the center club. Oh God.
In the club.
Yeah.
But that's what the priest is saying. He's like, you don't get to decide like if you deserve forgiveness. You don't get to just decide what you deserve in this situation, because we're talking about Bobby's faith. Because God decides that, basically. And if you want to look at it from like not a religious lens, you can look at it that like all humans deserve like happiness and deserve to like find forgiveness and be given grace.
It's the trying
when they are trying,
the efforts,
when they're making mistakes, but trying, shouldn't have to nail yourself to a cross for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's all.
After that is when, they go to Bobby and Athena go to the hospital. I don't really know why Bobby needs to be there, but I think it's like one of the most egregious, like going beyond the glass doors that I think we've seen.
I know. It's because he feels so guilty.
And
it's because he feels so guilty.
Yeah. And Victor confesses, and, his family's there and like watching this happen as he gets like taken away. Yeah. It's a different. It's a mirror to like him. So it's like this family was also destroyed, but just in a different way, and he also had to watch as the last of his family was taken away from him in a hospital after he lost his kids. And it's like now their family is getting also
taken away from them in a hospiel. So I think that was all like put together just to like mirror that.
I don't know if it's better or worse that like the mom and the son like were they were in denial.
Kind of in denial.
They had to watch as their husband or their father confess to doing this really bad thing and know that he was guilty of it because he confessed to it. But with Marcy and the kids, like they never really knew that it was kind of Bobby's fault. And I think that's also something that Bobby wrestles with, that they didn't quote unquote like know the truth of him and what he's done. And this family has to live with the knowledge that, this person who's so important to them did something so bad. So I don't really know, but I feel like there's something there in that parallel as well. He's not a criminal.
Even though his son is like, my dad didn't do anything wrong. It's like, but he just confessed to the crime. But okay.
And we'll see that in, I think, 218, kind of the fallout of them having to live with the knowledge that he did something so bad. Like the consequence, like they had to live with the consequences of his actions, whereas Bobby was the only one that had to live with the consequences of his actions. And which is like, not that it's a competition or anything, but like, what's worse? And because neither of them are great options there.
Yeah.
Hey! Where's the fire?
All right. So pull up a
Or
seat.
don't. Club soda's fine.
Have a drink.
Fine.
That's still a drink. Have a liquid.
Have a liquid.
Have your liquid courage, whatever it so be.
Like get an actual soda, man.
Oh, you think that man's gonna order some juice? At least it has bubbles. At least it has bubbles.
Get a mocktail.
No, I don't think he would even allow himself that. I know. I mean,
oh my God. Anyway, so Hen kind of tries to have this talk with Bobby about like, I think trying to be like, hey, here, let me tell you about me and the team a little bit more. But also, I think the goal there was to be like,
yeah,
I don't think you should have fired DeLuca.
And
like, I don't think he deserved to lose his job.
She was doing that in the most like
and in doing that
diplomatic way possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But in the process, she finds out that Bobby did not fire him. He just recommended to the chief that he get suspended for a couple weeks and get transferred to a different station. So,
yeah,
and
she's like, that's very generous.
Surprised? And she is.
But
she is surprised.
She's also not used to a true leader at all, because she's had, I mean, she's had to deal with Gerard, and then, you know, who also,
and then a bunch of people
also,
who
if they were on their way
out.
out to retirement, they were probably closer to Gerard than anything else. And
calling
in terms
it in.
Of like, they were either like kind of phoning it in because they were close to retirement, or because they're close to retirement, they might have held a lot of those same kind of like beliefs, ideas about,
like maybe not as drastic, you know, like maybe
of
not as
vein.
bigoted, but it would be very much still.
So
like,
I think that's also why.
Yeah.
I think that is why Hen almost comes to like in defense of DeLuca in a very light way. Like, she's not saying that he's good or anything, but because the 118 as a unit have had to kind of like close their ranks because they've been through so many captains that they kind of have to like lead themselves a little bit. So I think that is more of like a bonding experience, and because they have to trust each other, because they can't trust the person to lead them, or that there will be a person to lead them. So I think that's why we see that like difference between where we leave off in Hen Begins, and that like gap in time from 2008 with Hen Begins to now, which is like 6-7 years later. So like I get it, even though I wouldn't say they're all buddy.
No, but it's like they respect each other as firefighters, you know.
Yes.
Because there has to be a level of trust and respect to be able to like work with people in that kind of job. So so she learns this, and she invites Bobby to come out for drinks with her, Chim, and Rocco, Tommy. And so the scene is Hen, Chim, and Tommy at the table, and they're talking kind of like about the day. And she didn't tell them that she invited Bobby. It's like, I don't know. They like dramatic entrances. But yeah, so I think Tommy is the one who was saying like he was just doing it to try and, again, kind of like closing in ranks with DeLuca, being like he was just doing it to try and like mark his territory.
And Chimney is kind of like in the same boat as Hen, because he's like, DeLuca was a tool, but a useful one at least. Like, I don't think the punishment fit the crime. Like, oh, and it was Tommy who was like, he's marking, like Bobby's marking his territory. They're both kind of like underestimating Bobby. Hen kind of tells them the information that she's had in her little back pocket and just like decides to like lore drop on them at the most opportune moment. And then they're kind of like, oh, wow, he's not like other captains, actually. He's not like other captains. Wow.
He's like a cool captain.
Oh my God. Yeah, so there's a little bit of like respect that's built there, because just like Hen, they did not expect to leader
and don't have experience with this kind of leader. So then Bobby pulls up a chair.
Just like pulls up a chair, sits on it backwards. I'm just like,
he is so cool.
That's a cool move. Yes.
Buys them drinks. He's very much endearing himself to them. And like building like a rapport and trust, which you need to have to be able to like effectively lead. So, he's just continuing to do the things that he needs to do to be a good leader, which he is. And then we get like very small lore drops about like some scars, like how they all of them got scars except for Chimney.
Yeah.
Which is,
they were so mean.
That was the joke.
He's like, I am thus far unscarred, and I intend to keep it that way. It's like,
and he's like, I'm going to stay that way. Oh, honey. You got
sweet summer
they
child.
stopped giving him the scar on his head, which is crazy.
They
to me, 'cause that would
continue
be a
with it.
permanent
It
scar.
just gets like lighter and lighter. But at some point, they do. Just,
yeah,
like,
they don't do
stop.
it at all anymore, though.
Yeah,
it would still be a faint scar. Like I had one surgery and it was an appendectomy, and I still have a scar, even though it's supposed to, like, you know, kind of be invisible because they went in through my belly button. You can still see there's a little scar.
Well, Chimney's
there,
a miracle anyway. So
the one on
what?
his forehead. Okay, sure. But yeah, no, he has that. He has the
I didn't even think about
stab
that.
wound.
Oh, no. But the thing is, like, he doesn't even get those on the job either. Because all of the scars that they're bonding over, like, they got on the job. Yeah. So technically, Chimney still
on the
hasn't
job.
gotten hurt
no.
on the job like that. But he's not unscarred.
Yeah. And let's keep it that way.
Please.
At Tim Minear. At Dirty Tim.
So I did want to ask, the scar that Tommy's talking about, is that the fire that Chim pulled him out of?
Oh.
Because he said a warehouse fire.
He did. I didn't even clock that.
He did say that.
But, like, Chimney...
I think I thought about it for a second, but I wasn't.
I wonder because, like,
sure.
Chimney could have said, like, yeah, and it could have been a lot worse, but no.
Yeah, but Chimney wouldn't.
So
because that's not how Chimney functions,
sure.
You know.
Yes, we'll go with that. I think technically, Chimney pulled him out before it went big boom, but he was in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's definitely going to have scars and burn marks from that. Like, he was in the hospital. They didn't know if he was going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, why not? And, like, Hen shows hers. Bobby talks about his. He says that it was from, like, sparks.
What sparks the idea?
And that's when the little light bulb moment goes off, and he's like, I gotta go. And they're like, but what? You just got here. You were just showing us that you were cool, actually.
What's wrong, Lassie? Is Timmy in the well?
Oh my God. No, that's Eddie. You walked right into that one.
I did. Does that make Buck Lassie?
Yes. Because he's trying to take
He's using his little paws.
No.
We gotta move on.
I know.
Okay.
I did.
Are we done with scene dissection? Was there more to talk about with scene dissection?
I just wanted to point out the thing that Tommy said about, like, you know, being single is easier. Having the scars impresses women, but getting them freaks them out. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do with that.
I mean,
because looking back at it.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, like, that could be one of the reasons. I mean, one of the reasons he used to break up with what's her face, if they were still together at that point, or if they were together at that.
I think they were, because they had just kind of broken up recently.
Or would they have not been together yet?
Season
I think
1.
This is like 2014, 2015. Oh,
you said 3 years they were engaged.
I think they were together for 3, engaged for 2. I don't know. So somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh.
So yeah, he would have been together with her here.
I mean, this whole thing is retcon, let's be real. But it's also just like, it's so messy.
But it's a fun one.
It's so messy when you look at it.
Fun one.
Yeah.
It's the best retcon ever, actually. It's hilarious.
It's the messiest retcon because it makes it so much funnier. Knowing what we know now, not only the Tommy being gay part, but the Tommy being engaged to Abby around this time. Did anyone at the 118 know? Like,
talking about picking up chicks.
Cheater, pumpkin eater?
So
it's just
anyway, I think that's I just thought about Buck when he said that, because not because of the connection with Tommy and Buck, but like getting them scares them away, because that's what happened to him.
I thought about that too with Allie. Yeah, with Allie.
Yeah.
About,
in 2 episodes. Yeah.
Can't handle it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just which is also a bit of foreshadowing
that happened, that it was Tommy that said that. It's
like weird in retrospect.
What? Just these little things that keep lining up, that it's like, we know they weren't doing this part on purpose, but like, Yes.
on purpose. Well, they
Yeah,
were
but, like, the
foreshadowing
rest of
that
things is
book
just-
on purpose. But they did not know, yes, in 6 seasons,
Mhm.
we will have decided this man is gay and they share an ex and are dating each other.
Wild work.
They didn't know.
Well, first we have the church confession. There was just a couple things that I wanted to point out about that one. Because this is like right after Victor is apprehended at the hospital. And yes, this is why I wanted to talk about this. Because that leads directly into the next montage. That like, you know, Bobby says like it really stung that the kid called him a liar because he feels like it. And Father Jameson is like, well, yeah, by your own admission, you are a liar and a hypocrite. I'm like, great, thanks. That is so helpful. To this guy who is like trying to give penance for every little single bad thing that he's ever done. And Bobby's like, he doesn't want the team to know about his past because he needs to trust them, because he needs to be in 2 places at once. And this is where we also get, he needs to be in front of them to lead them, but also behind so he can always have their backs. And this is just another instance of, you know, having someone's back again. This was, I think, the second or third only platonic having your back sort of thing that we've seen. And this is where Father Jameson kind of gives the slightly off-center advice again. Because he's like, it's coming from a good place, because he says to Bobby that, you know, you don't have to tell them what you've done in order to show them who you are. The showing who you are is the good part of the advice, but the not having to tell them, I'm like, oops, 1 second. The not having to tell them part, I'm like, and I wrote down, yeah, that's fine until he has the worst day ever in 104 and relapses, and then Hen and Buck have to find him pass the F out, and questions arise, like, and he needs help because he hasn't allowed himself to lean on anybody because he hasn't told anybody anything. So
it's just the fact that the priest didn't even encourage him to like tell people that he is a widow and lost his children. Like, he doesn't have to give them the entire story, but like they didn't even know that he had been married and had children.
You could say like, well, Bobby may have taken the advice a little too far, but like for someone who's going like line by line by whatever the priest basically tell him, like Bobby thinks, okay, so I don't have to tell them anything about me. I just have to show them who I am, and that will do that job for me. And it's like, no, because that doesn't help you. That may help them, but how does that help you? Like, continue on.
Doesn't care.
And again, like the reason for the advice is good, but it's kind of like Bobby's Bobby's flavor of advice, where it's like the intention is good, but it's just like a little off from what's actually going to be helpful for him. And then we get into the montage.
Yeah, this is another scenario where it's like, wish he would have been in therapy, because the therapist would have been like, you absolutely need to open up to people about at least part of this.
Yeah, I just feel like he absolutely needs to open up to people, but like when he's ready, or like with therapy, it'll like guide him to a point where he is ready to actually open up with people, the 2 people, about like his past. Because this is where I hate, where you kind of go
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
No, I was just gonna say like when you kind of like blindly follow advice from people and not really like put in your own autonomy onto it, like that kind of spin. That's what I kind of hate. Or like your own.
You're just taking it as given, right? And not like, how will this work for me?
Well, yeah, and it's like, and it's like that for sure. But even though this is a priest, not a therapist, like he's like, I guess they get some counseling like training, but it's like he barely knows this priest too. So he's like really trusting him to take his advice. But like, I mean, it's like trusting a coworker you've known for a couple days, basically, because he's met this guy only a couple of times. So to like just trust their advice, like point blank is kind of
but it's
crazy.
because of his position
Crazy
as
work.
the priest that Bobby is like, well, yes, it has to be good advice because this man is so pious and you know, disseminating the word of God or whatever. So, but that's maybe also Bobby putting his faith in in not his people, right? Which is when we see that like shift.
Yeah. But this is why you should always get advice from more than one person too. Because like even like I have a therapist, but I will also soundboard things that I talk about with her with friends. Because like just because she's my therapist doesn't mean that
they're always right.
Everything she recommends me is the best thing.
Shouldn't like priests and stuff take counseling classes of how to be a good therapist? Because people are like, you know, looking to you for advice. And in order for you to give the best advice, you can talk about it like with faith, but also like therapy.
I think they get some, but it's not like, it's not like, think about social workers, how they get a lot of training to be counselors, basically. It's not really the same. And especially, I think maybe priests have more than like pastors
Depends
do,
on, like,
because I know that's all just like all the different denominations. Like it really all over the place. Anyway. Okay, so the montage. So this is the montage that has the Talking Heads song that we were talking about in the Needle Drop segment. And it is, once again, a perfect choice for another great montage where they're showing... I kind of compare this montage to Chimney's montage at the end of his. It's kind of similar where it's like they are crawling out, you know, trying to find their way back, but it's like they're not in a good place, even though they're like acting like they're in a good place and like they're doing better.
Yeah. For Bobby, it's a little of going through the motions, but I think at some point he is like, that is kind of like helping him a little bit, but obviously it's not going to fully make him better, but he is like, he basically the big beats of this montage are him cooking and him actually going to the AA meetings and taking point on calls and going to church. So he is going through the motions, and I think that is helping, but it's kind of like a fake it till you make it sort of scenario where it's like,
where his ultimate make it is to not make it. So it's all very,
it's like, it's a little performative, and I think he maybe it's like, I think he does allow himself to not get lost in the present moment exactly, because that's always in the back of his mind, but just to kind of like slightly enjoy it, allow himself to enjoy it a little more, because like it's been a while since he cooked a meal for a lot of people, and so he might be a little bit rusty, but he's going to set these traditions of, you know, the 118 eat as a family and schmoozing with people at the AA meetings, and like kind of meeting people, making conversations, being friendly. It's a little bit performative, but I think it does actually help.
Well, it establishes like the good captain that he is, and like his reputation at this point.
I think he's being like a facsimile of himself.
I mean, he's,
you know,
hiding all of the bad parts.
Yeah, it's like he's trying. Like if we were gonna call the Bobby before his family died Bobby 1.0, it's like he's trying to be Bobby 1.0.
Yeah, he's trying to patch back to a previous update. I mean he's actively showing his team who he is by showing them who he wants to be.
Yes, or who he was, because he's not showing
not showing any of the ugly side.
His grief.
Like, even though they don't necessarily know that he's going to AA meetings, but like he keeps it's that compartmentalization that we saw at like the very beginning of the season. It's just like, this is completely separate. I am Captain Bobby Nash, and I do these things, and I cook for my team, and I go to church, and I am a good leader because I have earned the respect of my team, which is like why he calls everyone up for family dinner, and he's making this firehouse into a fire home. I did.
Did you write that down?
Just so I would remember it.
I like to guess when you do.
To build a home.
To build a home. Oh no, that's such a good sad song. So yeah, then I did just want to mention the parallel between his going into the bright white light or his hallucination when he was, overdosing
in
or
206.
like at the beginning. So it's like in that he was making dinner and sitting down and having dinner with his family. And then it's like at the end, he's got this like the beginnings of what is going to be his family and he's making dinner. So I just thought that was kind of a nice like beginning and kind of they did a lot of these beginning back in Minnesota to now at the 118 parallels at the beginning.
Going back to 105 when he's kind of been triggered and is kind of losing it a little bit. And like we see him in his apartment at home, like setting the table for 4, even though nobody's there. And he's kind of just like a little lost in his own head. So I think that is where he feels like the most like providing for family and cooking dinner and like having these family dinner meal times. That is where his heart truly is, and whichever family he's with. So I think that's why it's such a big like pin for him. That pin's not the right word, and like not a linchpin, like it holds everything together for him. I don't know. It's okay. I've moved.
I know.
on.
I'm just trying to think of the word. I don't know.
The going away party.
Yeah, and then we have my favorite, which is that Tommy leaves,
and we don't have to talk about
and
Tommy
Buck is his
again
replacement.
until season 7, or alternatively our plot device episode, which will be coming out, which will be already out. So we don't have to talk about Tommy again.
Well, it's already
until
out.
season 7. I'm sure
when this comes out.
Yeah,
there'll probably be parallels and slow burn, but yeah, other than that.
So I love the what I'm assuming is the establishment of the cake tradition, the really funny cake stuff, which is absolutely a hen doing, right? And it's like the 217's loss is our gain, and it's like, it really is. It really is. That was very mean, but like because they gain Buck, and that also establishes like how Tommy left the 118 and was all of a sudden the air support that we saw in Broken just a couple episodes ago. So it's kind of a nice way for them to, piecemeal that all together in a funny way. And so they surprise Tommy, and Bobby looks like kind of he smiles and he's laughing and everything like that. And Hen shoves Tommy's face into the cake.
She jumps from the back of the ambulance.
She was too happy.
It was.
That was forceful and good for her.
It's what he deserves.
Let him eat cake. Truly.
Cathartic motive behind it, right? And it's just like felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I would feel the same.
So yeah, with that, Buck is the replacement for Tommy. Also talked about in our Plot Device episode. And we see Buck. And now the family's complete. Buck is also here. Finally.
Buck is also here.
Oh my god. What a little baby
and
firefighter.
He's so fucking
Buck.
Cute. He looks so excited.
And Bobby makes this like another classic Bobby joke where Buck's like, I'm looking for Captain Nash, and Bobby's like sitting at the table and he's like looking around, he's like, does anyone know like who that is? And he's just like, this is such a dad move. It's like no wonder they established like sometimes you call me Pops, and we went to a Springsteen concert. I would like to see more of that, please. And
I would too.
Oh my gosh.
A flashback, please.
I would also like to say that this is kind of fun because this scene with Buck entering the 118 is the same footage that they will use again later in Buck Begins in season 4, episode 5. They kind of like establish it now. And, you know, they tell Buck, like, pull up a seat, like join the family dinner, like just, you know, enveloped into this family. And Buck's like, hey, is it always like this? And Hen says always. And Chimney says when Bobby's in the captain's chair, it is. So obviously, like, a little bit of time had gone by since, you know, where we kind of like picked up this montage to now, because Buck comes in at like 2017, something like that. And then Buck's like, well, I might be in the right place. Like the song, this must be the place. So it's a nice like tie-in to that, and kind of like tie-in to like as a character moment. Like if we really look into it, that song could also apply to Buck as well, from what we know. Obviously not yet, but there's I think some similarities that can be drawn to that too. And it's just like, yeah, he's the missing piece to make the 118 family like their true family. And I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just like looking back at this scene really quick. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so then...
Oh, yes.
Should we talk about the present?
See.
Okay, so then that brings us back to present day, which I like how they transition from like, you know,
to
the dining table at the station from the past on Buck's first day, and transition to Bobby sitting at it alone as everyone gets into work. And they're like automatically know something's wrong because Bobby's in the kitchen and like not cooking.
And Jimmy's like, where's my breakfast?
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. And Hen immediately is like, this feels bad.
Wrong.
Yep. This doesn't feel great. And then he breaks the news to them, you know, that he is relieved of his duty while they investigate him.
But why? Like, for what? They're so surprised. And he says for not disclosing what happened in Minnesota before he took the job. And Hen is like, Hen kind of echoes or mirrors what Father Jameson had said, where she's like, Bobby, you don't owe them that part of you. You owe them your record, the people that you've helped, the lives you've saved. I think everybody chimes in. I think it's Buck and Eddie who chime in on that one. Yeah. Which is basically what Father Jameson said, which means that Bobby really has shown who he is to these people. But it's also, they know who he is because of, he's also let them in and allowed himself to lean on them too, that they know like the more wide story there. And he's like, he knew his past would catch up to him one day, but by the time it did, he thought by the time it did, it wouldn't matter because he'd have nothing left to lose. And now he has everything to lose because he has not only the family in the 118, but he has Athena and May and Harry as well. And Michael, we'll throw him in there too, because he's allowed himself to find joy and to live. So he's dealing with the consequences of his actions, but he's also made so much progress that he's like, well, now there are stakes at play and I don't want to lose it, but I have to deal with it because, you know, at the time where I wasn't, you know, in a good place and I allowed them to whitewash my record. He withheld some of the information that he should have been more upfront with, which again, he also doesn't have to tell them everything. But because he was cleared of the thing. So like there's really nothing too much to be worried about, but it's his guilt complex crawling back in again, because from the official incident report from Minnesota, he was cleared of charges. So like, yes, there has to be a hearing, but what would have been the over under of them like actually, you know, taking him away from his captaincy? Like, I don't think a lot. And then we see the culmination kind of like from that first shot of the episode where Bobby is sitting in the room for the hearing to start. And then we see this again. So all of that, the main part of the episode has been bookended by the hearing starting. Yeah. And they say, it's just a voiceover. We don't actually see the officials in the hearing, but the duty of that panel is to make a recommendation whether he should remain a member of the LAFD or not. And it's not a criminal proceeding or anything like that. And Bobby's just like, I just want to tell the truth, which is lovely. And it's like, but also how many times does he have to like unload all of this? And that's one of the reasons why he can never let it go either, because there's always something to be like, well, let me tell you the whole story. And it like brings things back up again, which is why he remembers this whole Bobby Begins Again is the flashback. And that's why he's remembering all of this. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Even in season 7, can't let things go.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, there's always something to play with in regards to his past.
We can roll right into Slow Burn.
Yeehaw.
You want to do your thing?
Yes, I would love to do my thing.
All right. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen and I will maybe judge. We'll see. Convince me.
Okay, so what happened was...
what had happened was... Come on, Rachel, more passion.
More passion, more energy. Okay, so when I was watching this episode, I had to like stop myself and stop the episode and I was like, like big light bulb moment. So I was seeing a lot of parallels with Buddie from how Bobby and Athena meet at the illegal cockfighting ring or whatever call. So this, like we talked about earlier, this is when Bobby is like actually letting himself laugh. He's allowing himself to feel joy and just kind of like live in the moment, right? He's laughing, he's smiling, he's feeling like a little bit of mirth. And that is when Athena shows up, right? So it's right after he starts laughing and Athena shows up and then he ends up, taking the rooster and just like handing it off to her. So what is this other moment when, or I paralleled it to the moment where Eddie allows himself to feel joy and mirth and just like living in the moment with his risky business dance in 806. And then who shows up is Buck. In these, both Athena and Buck show up in these moments where Bobby or Eddie, who are notoriously like guilt-ridden and very hard on themselves and don't allow them to feel joy, themselves to feel joy, when they are finally feeling that and experiencing that joy, that is when the significant other shows up in that moment of elation, basically. So
that's okay. I thought you meant you were drawing a parallel between both of them meeting, and I was like, how?
Oh, no.
So did I.
Oh.
I was like, literally how, no, Rachel?
This is deeper than that. So it's the significant other showing up immediately, right? It's a moment where Bobby and Eddie allow themselves to feel
I see that,
and get lost in the moment. And if that's the universe, if that's not the universe screaming, I don't know what is.
I co-sign that.
Like that is so similar to me.
That they belong together. Yeah.
It's the universe putting them in your path when it's like when you're feeling open to letting yourself feel joy, and they're like, here's the joy.
Exactly.
Here's the juice.
So I just saw that and I was like, thank you. I was so excited about
that's
that.
A good one.
I'm
that's a good one.
Okay. Now the floor is yours. That was my one thing. Or I have another thing, but it's about Tommy. But whatever. It was that other gay joke aimed at Tommy that DeLuca said when they were rounding up the chicken or the rooster. And Sal was like,
what? I didn't even clock that.
Oh, no. When they were trying to round up the chicken and they're like doing their little silly dance. And DeLuca's like, what are you going to do? Kiss him? And it was aimed at Tommy. Yeah, just throwing that in there. But
interesting.
It was the Bathena.
Yeah. I think you're really right about him being like the number one crony.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then they just Tommy just like wanted to fall in line. Maybe he had a crush on him. I don't know. That would make sense. But yeah, I mostly wanted to focus on that, like Bathena and Buddie joy.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a head canon, by the way.
What?
The Tommy and yeah.
That is. I have I thought I had a brilliant thing that I thought of in the shower. We recorded this episode in 2 parts because it got too late. And with the first night, I don't normally like take notes. I keep it all in my head like an insane person.
I co-sign that.
that I don't think I can completely remember. I think this is close to what I was thinking. There are just so many just like Eddie and Bobby parallels.
Oh my God.
In this episode that I could go through, but I feel like we'll talk about it in the next one more than here. But so yeah, here's my thing. And this is going to sound really similar to another slow burn segment we've had semi-recently. But just go with it. Oh, it was in Chimney Begins. Okay. So we get to see Bobby in the ambulance with his spouse.
Yeah.
Who's dying. Right. And we see him in the hospital with her while she's dying, and we see him in the aftermath of that. So we get to see his reaction to all of this. Okay. And now I want you to think about the parallel of that with Eddie, but think about Eddie's reaction to it versus Bobby's.
Oh, man.
And then I want you to think about Eddie's reaction when Buck was struck by lightning and getting put in the ambulance, and when he wasn't allowed to be in the back of the ambulance with him. And then when they got to the hospital and he yelled at the staff.
Yeah, it's not the same. No,
it's not the same. It's much more like, I think if you look at how Eddie acts with Buck in the aftermath of the lightning strike, that looks much more like a spouse than how you would expect a spouse to react, than how he reacts with Shannon. Now, he's very reserved in both of those, and I think there's more reservation in Buck's because he has that like trauma from Shannon dying, and it was the same thing with the like once the ventilator tube goes in, the chances of it coming out are very low, and then he can't really look at Buck because he is on the ventilator.
God, I hate that one so much. Because it is a good parallel to draw. But
yeah, I think that's what I have for this episode. Because there are so many Eddie and Bobby parallels with just like how they deal or don't deal or don't cope with their own feelings, emotions, grief, trauma, that kind of thing. There's so many parallels there. But I think if you look at just the utter devastation that Bobby's experiencing with losing his wife, and you compare it to Eddie in the next episode, like it's just not comparable.
Different situations at play there, but it's still like the circumstances are different and the relationships are different, but it's the reactions still are so drastically different that it's like it overcompensates for just those more minor differences, if that makes sense. Yeah. This there's just so many Eddie and Bobby parallels to draw here throughout the seasons. And I think that's one of the reasons why we end up paralleling, Bobby and Eddie, and then Athena and Buck so similarly, or so often. Oof, bummer. What a note to end on.
I just like to make these comparisons. Like I really like to play the spot the difference game, especially with characters that so purposefully parallel each other often. And when they're in the same, I mean, obviously, Bobby lost his kids too, but before he even saw his kids, the way he was reacting to Marcy being hurt is different. And I'm not saying that Eddie doesn't react and that he doesn't
distraught.
Like he does look destroyed, but it's in a different way.
The love that Eddie has for Shannon is different than what we see other couples have for their spouses. And this, like, just across the board. I don't care if we're talking about like Bobby and Athena or Bobby and Marcy or like Hen and Karen or like Chimney and Maddie. It is different the way Eddie interacts with the idea of Shannon as his wife or grieving her as his wife, like mother to his son. And I can't wait for us to look into this a little more in episode 217. So yeah, can't wait to talk about that more in 217, which is like, well, I know we've been building up to that for so long this season. It's like, oh, I think it's gonna be a bit of a doozy. Buckle up, kids.
It's gonna be a lot. So bring some snacks.
Bring some snacks and some tissues, maybe. I don't know. We'll keep it funny. Hopefully.
Maybe.
Not in a weird way, but like in a levity way, you know, where hopefully all of our most depressing episodes are the funniest. Is that weird? I think so too.
Stop there. Remember, don't work your life away just to pay for a timeshare down in LA.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you.
Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We're at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerd-Vergent media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content in our Discord community.
Catch you next time. And don't forget,
Bring a buddy with you.